Music View is sponsored by the Columbia Record, Tape, and Compact Disc Club, offering over 200 selections, including Timbuk3's Eden Alley, Robin Hitchcock's Globe of Frogs, and Love Sexy by Prince. Club membership applications are now on college campuses with a bonus preview of who's on the show in the coming weeks. Hi, I'm John Fox, and Music View is back, and this week, Timbuk3 discussed their album Eden Alley in the feature interview.
I've tried to read the Bible a few times in my life, and I never really got much past the first section.
Plus AC Nietzsche, or the thinking man's medal of Zodiac Mind Warp. And as always, Rockpool's Jack Rabbit has his weekly column.
This week, Rabbit Food goes beyond the Wildwood in tribute to Syd Barrett.
Plus, Naked Raygun's appraisal of the Earth, and Captain Sensible looks back on a classic by the Damned.
I said to Rhett Scabies, I'll bet you £50 I will get a toilet flushing on this album.
So don't touch that dial. It all happens in the next 30 minutes on America's alternative talk show, Music View. Alright, Barbara and Pat McDonald are Timbuk3, the duo from Austin who hit the top 20 with The Future's So Bright I Gotta Wear Shades, and sold truckloads of their debut LP. Where their first album was a collection of individual stories, their follow-up Eden Alley tends to carry one narrative line all the way through, and they tried to explain it in the start of our feature interview.
I've tried to read the Bible a few times in my life, and I never really got much past the first section, the place where, Adam and Eve get thrown out of the garden, and that whole thing. And that story always seems to pertain to a lot of things that happen in the world. It seems like a theme that kind of was hit upon really early in the history of literature, the idea of this perfect thing somehow getting screwed up, and people blowing it. And in a way, that seems to be a theme for this country, but the solution ends up being to try to find the pleasures of survival, the idea of just persevering, through hard times and getting back on your feet, those simple things like just kind of being able to deal with some pain sometimes, and even though you're not necessarily in the garden, being able to eke out a living somewhere and make a life for yourself. These are kinds of things that some of the songs on the album deal with.
A Sinful Life by Timbuk3, and later in the show they'll discuss their stand on the onslaught of technology. Plus, when we return, Jack Rabbit does his thing, Naked Raygun and science fiction, and Zodiac Mind Warp looks to the future.
I want to ride on the backs of cows and, eat chili.
This is Music View. Hi, I'm John Fox, back on Music View with England's self-proclaimed hot dog daddy, Zodiac Mind Warp. Along with his group, The Love Reaction, they've been churning out some of the world's wittiest, heaviest, and most innovative hard rock for the last few years. There's no question that the guy is well educated, and we asked him how he made his way into a musical genre usually reserved for the lowest common denominator.
The fact that we do have a sense of humor and we do have an IQ above 5, people tend to think that, just because you are intelligent, that you cannot embrace this simplistic pleasures of, these simple people, which is just drinking and having a good time. We're not mocking this. We genuinely have an affection for that kind of lifestyle. We think that it's a very liberating way to live your life, is to relax and not let things bother you, not to have like a kind of chip on your shoulder about things, and I genuinely have an affection for that kind of simplistic way of life. I wish I could be like that myself. Unfortunately, I tend to read too many books. I think, I just want to be a good old boy myself too. I want to ride on the backs of cows and, eat chili.
Zodiac Mind Warp and The Love Reaction, and Skull Spark Joker. And let me introduce another intellectual who moshes as hard as the best of them. He's a columnist for Rockpool and publishes his own rag, The Big Takeover. He's a New York DJ, and his name's Jack Rabbit. And each week he provides us with some insights in music in a column called Rabbit Food. Jack?
Thanks, John. It's nice to be back after a long, hot summer. The 60s music sound continues to be a prime influence on today's young bands, largely because it was the last time spirited, young-sounding rock and roll was in the charts and on the radio. The Beatles, Stones, Doors, Who, Kinks, and Beach Boys may be today's dinosaurs, but their older records sound particularly fresh today in our commercially stale era. Of course, not all 60s-inspired bands are good. Many seem to be recreators and plagiarists. The whole Vox-toting 60s revival scene, which is fortunately dying out now, as all too much nostalgia revivals must. But excellent groups who use the 60s as inspiration to make 80s music abound, from the better-known likes of R.E.M. and Echo and the Bunnymen, to club scene greats like Agent Orange and Social Distortion. One of the latest and best is Manchester, England's Mock Turtles, who make distinct psychedelic-flavored pop. As if to show off their listening habits, they have tracks on the recent Syd Barrett, Captain Beefheart, and Kinks tribute LPs. Here is in fact their Syd Barrett cover from that very album, the Mock Turtles with their update of the classic No Good Trying. It's no good. The Mock Turtles, a new group from Manchester. That's their cover of original Pink Floyd leader Syd Barrett's No Good Trying, and that appears on the Syd Barrett tribute LP, one made up entirely of modern bands doing Barrett songs called Beyond the Wildwood. The Manchester label that released that, Imaginary Records, which fortunately isn't really imaginary at all, has just put out two similar LPs, one of the Captain Beefheart and one of the Kinks, and a Mock Turtles EP of originals, so you should look into those as well. Jack Rabbit, always looking for new food for us rabbits.
Super. Thanks, Jack. Great to have you back. Now, next up are Naked Raygun, products of the punk explosion who formed around the hardcore era. They hail from Chicago and are still making vital, crunching music to this day. Thematically, singer Jeff Fozzati's lyrics have always borne an element of hopelessness regarding his fellow human beings, something he tried to discuss for Music View.
That's what I see around me. A lot of people with a lot of loose ends and no great direction. I see that more like, I hate to sound hokey, but I see it more like with the human race. I see us just sort of plunging ahead in no direction, and I really think that if there was a small, minute master plan, no matter how small and how ignored, if we just wrote it down once and said what we are trying to do with the world here and the human race is to advance it in this way a little. Yeah. Not everybody has to pay attention to it, but I think it'd be nice if somebody went along. I don't know, I just think of when all the crappy science fiction movies you see and all the books you read, when somebody comes to a planet, they say, take me to your leader, and we can't say that if someone came here. We wouldn't know where to bring them.
From their latest album, Jettison. That's Naked Raygun and Walk in the Cold. And now it's time to wrap up our feature interview with Pat and Barbara from Timbuk 3. The third member of Timbuk 3 is their portable electronic drummer who's changed his shape as the band's progressed, nonetheless pointing towards the band's use of music technology. They told Music View where their fascination with electronics lies and dies.
It's a love-hate relationship, you know. We don't let technology dominate our sound or our lives. You know, if ever it seems like it's getting close to that, we back off, you know. It's like we succumb because a lot of that stuff is so much fun, and it can be fun, but it gets to a point where when it stops being fun, you know, it's like if you spend all your life reading owner's manuals or having to work and slave so you can afford this stuff, we kind of stay with the more affordable kind of things, you know. We don't have like a Fairlight, you know, or any kind of advanced samplers even.
Timbuk 3 and Sample the Dog. And that wraps up our feature interview, but the show's not over yet. When Music View returns, Captain Sensible looks back on the Damned Strawberries album. So don't go away. Here's an important reminder that Music View is sponsored by the Columbia Record, Tape, and Compact Disc Club, offering over 200 selections, including Eden Alley by Timbuk 3, Prince's Love Sexy, and Robin Hitchcock's Globe of Frogs. Applications are around on college campuses, plus they'll tell you what to expect on The View in the weeks to come. Alright, taking a look back this week is Captain Sensible, one-time member of the legendary Damned. One song bearing the Captain's unmistakable imprint on their Strawberries LP is called Don't Bother Me, and he tried to discuss it for Music View.
There's a funny story behind that one. You see, the Damned were always gambling for some reason or other. We would always bet like sort of £50 on this, £50 on that. And I said to Rat Scabies, I'll bet you £50 I will get a toilet Flushing on this album. And he said, you won't, because I won't let you. And I said, well, I will do it, and you won't even notice it. But he said, it's got to be audible. I've got to be able to hear it. I said, you'll hear it. So I did it. What we did was we got a load of drum noises, and we made a little tape loop, which starts the song and goes... And the is actually the toilet flushing, but it's gated, you see, so it only lasts a little time. So it sounds like a drum of some sort with an echo on it, but it's actually a toilet flushing. And I won me money.
From the Damned's classic Strawberries, Don't Bother Me, and that wraps up the show. My thanks to Captain Sensible, as well as Pat and Barbara from Timbuk3, Zodiac Mind Warp, Naked Raygun, Marlene Goldman, and my boy Jack Rabbit. Now, next week we'll pay a visit to the Steak Place, where the Fall give the feature interview. Plus, Wire Move Onward, Mike Watt of Firehose, and DOA meet Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, you don't want to miss that one. Until then, I'm John Fox for Music View, a presentation of new programs who are solely responsible for its contents. Music View is sponsored exclusively by the Columbia Record Tape and Compact Disc Club and airs weekly on 175 discerning radio stations across the U.S. Timbuk3's Pat and Barbara McDonald have an unusual rock touring situation because they towed along their 5-year-old son, and they told Music View they wouldn't change that for the world.
But it doesn't matter if it's your child, you know, although with us it's great to travel with our son because then he's with us and, you know, he kind of keeps us really entertained and a lot happier on the road, you know. But just to have kids around, you know, if it's whether it's your kid or someone else's kid, you know, it's great to interact with kids because they
have a real fresh perspective on life. It's a real renewing kind of thing.
That's Pat and Barbara of Timbuk3, and I'm John Fox for Music View, sponsored by the Columbia Record Tape and CD Club, offering over 200 selections by artists like Timbuk3, Robin Hitchcock, and Prince. Membership applications are now available on college campuses. England's Zodiac Mind Warp is a thinking man's musician who breaches sex and aggression with his band of metalheads, The Love Reaction. An intellectual by instinct, Music View asked if he truly enjoys catering towards rock's lowest common denominator.
I'm really enjoying this kind of stuff, you know. Originally I wasn't 100% metalhead, you know, but the more and more I'm getting into this kind of way of, I don't know, I've been on the road for 2 years, you know, I'm finding the more and more I'm living this stuff, the more and more I'm starting to like it, and I'm finding it difficult to remember what it was like any other kind of lifestyle, you know. I've still got a couple of library books I haven't taken back, too.
That's Zodiac Mind Warp, and I'm John Fox for Music View, sponsored by the Columbia Record Tape and Compact Disc Club, offering over 200 selections by artists like Timbuk3, Robin Hitchcock, and Prince. Membership applications are now available on college campuses. The Damned have left a legacy of 12 years of anarchy and destruction. One prime target for their chaotic behavior has been U.S. college radio, something one-time member Captain Sensible discussed for Music View.
We did some very strange things on college radio in the States. I can't remember what it was. It might have been Chicago or somewhere like that. And we locked these people out of the actual control room area and turned the key in the thing. And we actually took the station over for an hour and a half. And we were just like sort of swear. I've got a tape of it. We were swearing and cursing and doing all this stuff. And I know it was like sort of a dodgy deal and all this, but you can't get away with that in Britain at all. You know, it's very sort of straight-laced.
That's Captain Sensible, and I'm John Fox for Music View, sponsored by the Columbia Record Tape and Compact Disc Club, offering over 200 selections by artists like Timbuk3, Robin Hitchcock, and Prince. Membership applications are now available on college campuses. Chicago's Naked Raygun were a product of the punk explosion, but now tend to perform before young audiences of hardcore kids who've never heard groups like the Buzzcocks or Stiff Little Fingers. Singer Jeff Pizzotti told Music View the band tries to educate their younger fans by covering punk classics in concert.
I think there's a whole crowd out there of, especially our fans, who haven't heard a lot of these great bands that have influenced us, and if we can bring some of our favorite songs to some of our fans, I think they would enjoy it, and they seem to, because we know that we do, and if they like us, we think they'd like the bands that we like too. So I don't know, I run into kids all the time who ask what bands are good. You know, they don't seem to know, and they listen to all the new stuff too, of course, but they seem to be interested in knowing. You know, people always ask us what our influences are.
That's Naked Raygun's Jeff Pizzotti, and I'm John Fox for Music View, sponsored by the Columbia Record Tape and Compact Disc Club, offering over 200 selections by artists like Timbuk3, Robin Hitchcock, and Prince. Membership applications are now available on college campuses. In 1986, Timbuk3 hit the charts with The Future's So Bright, I Gotta Wear Shades. Unfortunately, their tongue-in-cheek blast on yuppies became a yuppie anthem, and the whole message got twisted around. Pat McDonald told Music View that another Legion has misread the song in '88, leading to some disheartening consequences.
Dukakis and his campaign, they've quoted from The Future So Bright, I Gotta Wear Shades occasionally. It was quoted in Time magazine that he had used this, in his speech. And I guess recently somebody from the campaign headquarters said that was kind of their unofficial theme song. But it's strange because to me, when we started playing that song, in my mind, that was the motto of the Reagan administration.
That's Pat McDonald of Timbuk3, and I'm John Fox for Music View, sponsored by the Columbia Record Tape and Compact Disc Club, offering over 200 selections by artists like Timbuk3, Robin Hitchcock, and Prince.
Hi, I'm Barbara,
And this is Pat, and we're Timbuk3.
and we're going to be on Music View this week.
Plus, the Thinking Man's Medal of Zodiac Mind Warp, columnist Jack Rabbit with a tribute to Syd Barrett, Naked Raygun's personal point of view, and Captain Sensible on an old damned classic. That's all this week on Music View, sponsored by the Columbia Record Tape and Compact Disc Club.